right, it's on. All right, good morning. That video is a great starter, I think, for kicking off the meeting. It really speaks to why we all are here and why we all do what we do. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Devyn Smith, Chairman of ARM, also CEO of Arbor Biotech. And we've got just a couple of pieces here, and then I'm going to push it over to Tim to go through some ARM slides. So let's go to the next one there. So I think that the piece that I found really inspiring here is it's so amazing to think that 10, 15 years ago this was all conceptual, right? It didn't even exist as a potential. And here we are, we actually have therapies that are changing patients' lives. And that's why we're here. And it's been a long time coming. I think this is probably the maybe 12th or 13th MESA meeting. I think I've been to almost all of them, back in the Estancia when there were maybe 50 people there, and some of the people here were there, and it's really wonderful to see how much it's grown and changed. And Tim, all right, so these are actually Tim's slides, but I'm just going to cover two quick things before he comes up. So first, we need to cover a couple of things on the from an ARM perspective. So we do have a new slate of directors. I believe there's 7 new directors for the ARM board. Maybe where they're getting them up. Tommy the Master's maybe getting it fixed. There we go. Oh, that's better. I'll go here and then back. So these are the new ARM board nominees. Some of them are, probably most of them I've seen here today. Adds a great mix of folks to the ARM board, and we're looking forward to their service and having them join us. So with that, what we'd like to do is, first time we've done this, usually it's done at an ARM member briefing, but so all the ARM members, so you're an ARM member if your company's a member of ARM. And so what we'd like to do is we need to get formal approval from the membership for the slate of board directors that you see up there. There's 33, I believe. So all the ARM members, if you're not an ARM member company, no one will know if you raise your hand or not, but if you are an approval, you approve the slate of names here, please raise your hand. And any opposed, raise your hand as well. And it looks like it's unanimous. Thank you. So now we'll go back. So I think it's teed up to be a really interesting meeting. Probably I think every year gets better and better, and kudos to the ARM team for the work they do. And you can see some highlights here of some of the pieces that are coming today. I think a really nice mix across technologies, but also bringing in some of the important things like ethics that I think are becoming a real area for all of us to keep our eyes on. And then the last one, the Science Slams. This is a new one this year, and Tim will talk more about it. But again, bring a little bit more of a deep science here into the meeting. We do have the pleasure of having Dr. Nicole Verdun here. She'll be here later this morning, and if you're not aware, she's the new director of the Office of Therapeutic Products, which is the new OTAT. So it'll be a pleasure to have her here and hear some of her words and wisdom, so stay tuned for that. And that is all of my remarks, but I do want to turn it back to Tim, and thank you, everyone. I hope you have a lot of fun in the meeting.
Well done. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Devyn. Good morning. Before I start, I do want to just take a moment to ask you to please keep the victims of the recent attack against Israel in your thoughts and prayers this week. We've had several members of the ARM community that have been directly impacted by these events and thus are understandably not able to join us at the meeting on the Mesa. And again, we're thinking about them, praying for peace in the Middle East and safety during this most difficult time. Okay, in addition, I would like to also add my congratulations to the new board members for their election to our board of directors, as well as the re-election of our existing board. And I'm looking forward to working with all of them on behalf of the patients in our community. And, you know, as I think many of you, if you heard me speak before, I tend to like to say something that's a little, I think, difficult to talk about sometimes, but the sad, hard truth is, and we heard this from Jimmy Olahair, for too many of our patients, millions around the world, the reality is that the status quo for them too often represents death or serious disability. And that's why it's so heartening to hear the stories of people like Jimmy Olahair. And, you know, it really is, I had the pleasure of meeting Jimmy last year. And when you talk to him one-on-one, it's exactly that. It's very heart-wrenching, and he talks about how the hospitalizations, the constant pain crises kind of beat him down over time, and he really was without hope in many ways. And then he got into this clinical trial, how his life changed, how optimistic he felt about life, and he really was motivated to also expand his family and have these two beautiful young daughters to join their son. So it's really it's a great story. And the truth is, that we think on the horizon, near term, by December, hope is on the way for patients living with sickle cell in the form of this very impressive gene therapy from Bluebird that has a PDUFA date in December, and then also the CRISPR Vertex gene editing regimen that also might get approved in December. So we're delighted to see that for sickle cell patients, we think hope is on the way. I don't want to spend a lot of time dwelling on the last year, but just a few highlights. We've done a lot of work with the FDA. Those of you that know Mike Lemke and his team have really done an impressive job forging a relationship with the FDA and partnering on what we call our scientific exchange. Last October, we partnered up with ASGCT. David Barrett's their CEO, a dear friend, is here, and with ASGCT and the FDA, we conducted a full-day workshop on CMC potency assays that really kind of got after one of the thornier issues in manufacturing. And it culminated in a very nice white paper that we put out, and we're hopeful it will provide some sort of soft guidance to the field in general. We have another meeting coming up on November 1st with the FDA to look at what we think of as sort of the building blocks of platform technology. So more to come there, but those are very important exchanges that we have with the FDA and industry. We've brought together our community a few times on things around AAV gene therapy workshops and tissue engineering workshops that we think are very important. And in a little bit of a twist, when Silicon Valley Bank hit a very large bump in the road, seems like a long time ago, but we put together very quickly a industry-led kind of briefing with an expert panel back in March. Devyn mentioned Nicole Verdun when she was announced in August of this year to be the new director of the Office of Therapeutic Products. She was incredibly gracious to, within the first several days, spend time with me to do a fireside chat within our community and take questions from folks in the ARM community. And we're just delighted that she's going to be here. She is here for her first meeting on the Mesa. So my thanks to Nicole for that. And then, there are a lot of thorny issues we wrangle with on market access and reimbursement. Some of the trickier ones are taking place over in Europe, and there's some outstanding work that's being done by Mark Battellini and Paolo Morghese and our team over in Europe to really try to break open and modernize how they think about what's called the joint clinical assessment and their approach to reimbursement for ATMPs in Europe. So a lot of great work that has been done over the last 12 months. Okay, a few quick data points on the sector. So as people know, for decades, right, it was a very long, hard slog to make meaningful clinical progress in the field of gene therapy. And then we had this wonderful inflection point in 2017 when Spark Therapeutics received the first approval for a gene therapy for a rare inherited retinal condition. That was really a tremendous point in time for the field. And then we saw approvals for SMA, beta thalassemia, CALD, and hemophilia B in that period from 2017 to 2022. So we saw 5 approvals over the span of about 6 years. Terrific progress in service of patients. This year, right, it's been a seminal year, right? We believe we may see 5 approvals in 1 year. So 5 approvals over 6 years, now 5 approvals hopefully in 1 year for dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa, DMD, hemophilia A, and then again the 2 sickle cell therapies that are up for approval in December. And if we see those, we'll have 8 cell and gene therapies approved in 1 year, which is great news, and is getting close to the doorstep of what the FDA's vision of seeing 10 to 20 approvals in the field by 2025. So great progress. I know you've heard it. I hear it a lot, which is, look, this is great news for our patients. And people sincerely believe that, and they are cheering on the field, whether they're patient advocates, payers, government officials, policymakers. They really want to see us succeed, but they raise legitimate questions about the sustainability of the system, right? At $1.5 to $2, up to $3 or more million for a gene therapy, reasonable people can ask, look, is this sustainable? Can the system really afford gene therapy? And so I wanted to give my quick answer, which is yes. And I'm the one that put the exclamation point at the end. I could have underlined yes, but I chose an exclamation point to make the point that I believe the data suggests that these gene therapies are eminently digestible by healthcare systems in the US and Europe. Okay, why do I say that? Well, look, if you just take a look at the data, when you look at gene therapies and gene editing medicines that are projected to be approved, and you look at the cost to the healthcare system in the US, this data comes from our good friends and colleagues, Mark Trusheim and his team at the Tufts New Diggs Center. More on them in a moment. It looks like this will cost about $7.5 billion in 2030. So not next year. We have several years to prepare for this. In 2030, about $7.5 billion and around $18 billion globally. And this data tracks very nicely with the Wall Street analyst consensus data. So about $7.5 billion. Okay, well, what does that look like? How do you translate that? What are different ways to think about that for context? It's about 1/10 of 1% of projected healthcare spending in the US in 2030, 1/10 of 1%. It's a little over 1% of total projected US prescription drug spending in 2030, 1% of projected federal spending on Medicaid. And rare disease patients are expensive to care for. It's about 1.8% of medical costs for rare disease patients in the United States. And it's comparable to one drug, Medicare spending on one drug for diabetes, right? So I think it's helpful to frame some of this up in context. We're just beginning to do that, and I'm looking forward to us partnering with other groups like Tufts and others to flesh out this a little bit more in the months ahead. And it's also reasonable to ask, look, these gene therapies are really expensive. As I mentioned, aren't they much more expensive than other drugs, other medical interventions? And the answer is yes, in part, but it's not quite that straightforward. In some ways, they are more like transplants. Another way to think about it, I think some additional context, right? So gene therapies and transplants have some things in common, right? They both require significant upfront investments for anticipated durable benefits, right? Very different than chronic care, which most of our healthcare systems are accustomed to paying, right? They're intended to treat small patient populations with high costs of care. And they are mostly administered in an inpatient setting and paid for in a bundled payment system, a diagnosis-related grouping, or DRG, right? And look at some of the data. What does the data tell us? Transplants, heart transplants, about 3,500 a year, $1.6 million a pop. Double lung transplant, about 2,000 a year, a little over $1 million. A lot of allogeneic bone marrow transplants, almost 10,000 a year. Again, over $1 million. So altogether, they look a little bit like what we might see with gene therapies. Now, if you think I'm crazy and you disagree with everything I just said, or if you think there might be something to it, either way, good news. From 4 to 5 today, we're going to have a panel on the importance of ethics in gene and cell therapy, where we're going to talk about this topic and a whole bunch of other stuff. As Devyn mentioned, I think we think at ARM this is a really important topic, ethics in gene therapy and cell therapy, and we're going to start to ventilate some of these issues. I think it's very healthy to talk these things through as a community and let people disagree respectfully and share their perspective. So we've got a patient advocate, a bioethicist, and some industry leaders joining me today at 4 o'clock. So if you're able, please come. All right. We've got a lot of cool new stuff cooking this year, and I'll skip right to it. I am like all shot out of a cannon about ARM Studios. What in the world is ARM Studios, you ask? Good question. It's our first ever media platform at the meeting on the Mesa to interview sector leaders and to talk to them about, get to know them better, their organizations better, and talk about important issues in the field. It will highlight the spirit and energy of the conference, we believe, and will bring highlights of the meeting basically out to our ARM community through social media. So stay tuned for more. ARM Studios is set up right next to the bar. Handy location. And you can drop in and say hi, but just be quiet because we'll be doing a lot of filming the next few days. And it's brought to us by, we couldn't do it, but for our partners and good friends and colleagues at Smart Labs, Ori Biotech, Solistic, and Precision Advance. So my thanks to them for helping us pioneer this new approach. I mentioned Mark Trusheim and the team at MIT Newdigs a moment ago. They're going to be unveiling some new data tomorrow through a press release that we're doing with them, and then a panel really that's taking a look at our cell and gene therapy is a good bet. What's the likelihood of approval once you begin a clinical trial? And they have a spotlight session. Faraz Ali, one of our board members and the CEO of Tenaya, is going to do a fireside chat with Mark Trusheim. I would really encourage people to go if you're able. I think it'll be really enjoyable. It's tomorrow at 10:45. So more to come on data from Newdigs. Similarly, our friends and colleagues at True Trials are officially launching their new platform, which is designed to connect patients with FDA-authorized clinical trials for cell therapies, which is really important, right? There's a lot of, as we all know, there's a lot of information out there. Some of it's great and accurate, things like clinicaltrials.gov. Some of it's snake oil salesmen. They're out there peddling not great stuff, right? This is an attempt, True Trials is an attempt to kind of cut through all of that and make a much more user-friendly patient interface that'll allow folks to understand, is there a cell therapy that I might be able to enroll in, and cell therapy trial. And it's got great sponsors behind it, including our dear friends at the Emily Whitehead Foundation, the Mayo Clinic, Sanford Health, and Cook Myocyte. So please keep an eye out for more coming from True Trials, which we also think is related to our focus on ethics in the field, right? Making sure people get into the right kind of clinical trials and actually understand them is very important. And then lastly, there is a workshop just at the edge of the conference on Thursday. Once we're finished, our good friends at Ori Biotech are going to hold a workshop on the digitalization of cell and gene therapy. And this goes to our bigger theme around the importance of modernizing healthcare systems overall, right? To move from how do you think about paying for chronic treatments to things that are, durable, potentially curative in nature, which is the backbone of cell and gene therapy, right? So this workshop will look at, paper-based developments and manufacturing is an impediment to scale, is our view, right? Adopting a digital infrastructure may shorten timelines, increase throughput, improve reliability, and reduce cost. That's the kind of big vision out there. And Ori's bringing together a number of us from ARM as well as 25 other organizations to talk about this topic. If you're interested, I would ask you to please find a member, Jason Foster, a member of the ORI team, please. Okay, so I want everybody to enjoy this meeting on the Mesa. We love being in California, but the reality is we've outgrown the space, unfortunately. So we are, I think people know, we're packing our bags and we're moving to the Arizona Biltmore next year, which will be a great venue. I've been to the Biltmore before it was renovated. It's a terrific property, and we're gonna more than double the hotel space right on campus. They've got tremendous amenities. There's a lot more space overall. So at some level, we're a victim of our own success, and it's time to pack our bags and head to Arizona. So, but I think everybody will really enjoy it for sure. And at this point, I do want to pause for a second and just acknowledge our tremendous events team, led by Laura Stringham, but including Kelly McWinney, Jancy Curl, Brittany Miller, and Savannah Bryant. If you could just join me for a split second. Thank you, man. The team is really amazing, and they take just great care of us, so my thanks to them. Okay, so in summary, we've had a pretty busy and productive 12 months, I would say, since we last got together at the meeting on the Mesa. 2023 is shaping up to be an incredibly strong year for the field, and we're hopeful that we'll see these 2 important approvals for sickle cell disease by the end of the year. It's my view that the healthcare systems will be able to digest the coming wave of genomic medicines, but again, if you don't see it that way, no problem. Come at 4 o'clock and we'll talk about it. And I think there are many new things that are being rolled out at this meeting on the Mesa. Please take the time the next few days to explore them, to learn from your colleagues, to network like mad, and most importantly, to have some fun. Thank you very much.